Alright, who did it? Who did it? Who thought it'd be a good idea to announce that we're gonna blow up Texas at midnight? So, I was literally just about to go to bed, and then out of nowhere, let's decide, hey, you know what? Yeah, let's drop this bombshell news at 11:18 at night, just right before midnight. So apparently, according to Crash Gladys, I don't know if I pronounced that right, on Twitter, said this. She says, well, that was a bit of a bomb drop. Kenny Sargent, who is part of Speed Freaks, which is a motorsports radio program, says that after next year, Texas Motor Speedway is set to blow up and or reconfigure to help make the product better. Then he added that IndyCar may or may not be a part of that picture moving forward. Let's deconstruct this. Let's just break this. Let's start off with the first one. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got our wish, it seems. Texas Motor Speedway might get blown up, which is something we've been praying for since the dreadful repave of 2017. And it's gonna get, looks like, according to her and Kenny Sargent, Speed Freaks, that it's going to get blown up after the NASCAR Cup race on April 23rd, or on April 2023, which means that more than likely, Texas is not going to be an all-star race, which is good news. The part that I want to know is two things. It says either blown up / and or reconfigure. If it's blown up, meaning blown up and it's going to be retransformed into a parking lot, a Walmart, whatever, or it's going to be reconfigured to a completely different type of racetrack. And if so, what racetrack will it be? Part of me has a theory that they could reconfigure it maybe to a track similar like Atlanta. That's a possibility. I could definitely see it becoming a new version of Atlanta. I don't see them getting bigger. Part of me had a feeling that maybe it could replace Fontana since that's becoming a short track. Texas can be like Fontana, but I don't think they can take up more space going from a 1.5 mile track to a 2 mile track. So my options are two things. Either number one, they could repave it to make it a new Atlanta, or they just repave it so that 1 and 2 is not constructed the way it was constructed. It probably could just go back to the normal Texas configuration. That's also a possibility. Or it could be reconfigured to a short track. Regardless of the situation, regardless of what happens, whatever the new Texas Motor Speedway is going to be, it's going to be a net positive because this racetrack, the current racetrack, is one of the worst in the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, the second part, Texas and IndyCar, is a bit of a shocker. But Texas and IndyCar, especially this year's race, was absolutely dreadful. The attendance. It was absolutely dreadful. It felt like you were watching a practice session. That's how little people showed up. In fact, IndyCar at Texas is in a bit of a downward spiral for quite some time now, for a couple of years now. Just very little promotion. It just seems that Texas, especially under new management without Eddie Gossage, it just feels like Texas doesn't care about IndyCar, so there is a real good chance it could be dropped, especially we consider the fact that, like I mentioned before, April 23rd, around that area, is when IndyCar goes to Texas. I mean, this year was held in March, but again, it's around that spring area, and if you have NASCAR going back to that place, it could take over what was going to be IndyCar's race, and it could lead to an outright cancellation, which would be really bad for IndyCar fans, especially since oval racing, we have seen less and less ovals this year. We only have 4 oval races in the entire IndyCar schedule, and to lose Texas would be very bad for IndyCar. But then again, Texas don't care about IndyCar, I feel like, again, under new management. But again, this is all just speculation. Nothing's been confirmed. I mean, it is coming from someone that apparently is somewhat in the realm of the NASCAR world, or at least in the business of NASCAR tracks, and racetracks across America. So I do think we need to at least pay attention a little bit. Maybe not use all of our eyes, but take note of it at the very least. But this could be huge of what the future of Texas Motor Speedway looks like. We know definitely, more than likely, it ain't going to be part of the All-Star race. Fox doesn't want to do anything with Texas. Completely understandable. This racetrack has been dying since 2017. The races have just been flat out awful. I am very surprised it took this long, but if this is true, this would be great news for Texas. Because like I said, anything is a positive. I don't care if it's a short track, if they reconfigure it to Atlanta. Actually, I prefer they don't reconfigure it to Atlanta. We already have too many super speedway racetracks to begin with, but if they reconfigure it back to the old Texas, just something will be a net positive over than what we have currently at the moment. I mean, when you look at it, a lot of things are changing for Texas. Last year, a couple years ago, Eddie Gossage, who has been with Texas, the general manager of Texas Motor Speedway since the beginning, I think in 1996, 1997, stepped down in 2021. Now you have new management coming in. 3 days ago, we had a new president and general manager that was hired for Texas Motor Speedway. And Mark Faber, the former guy at the top of the helm, was Rob Ramage, who's now been promoted to senior vice president at Speedway Motorsports. So Texas Motor Speedway has had a lot of changes in management so far. So I won't be surprised if a new person like Mark Faber or maybe Rob Ramage came into Texas and thought, we need to change. And this is what we're going to do. Again, take this with a grain of salt, but keep note of it. I don't think something like this would just be sprouted off out of the blue. I mean, we have been bullying Texas to be destroyed for years now. And I think now that we have someone that is somewhat in the realm announcing that, hey, apparently it's going to get blown up in the end of 2023. Again, I wouldn't outright say yes, it's going to happen, but again, take note of it. A big question I have for IndyCar in the state of Texas in terms of the actual state itself is, where are they going to go? If Texas is blown up and IndyCar is not part of the future, could it return maybe to COTA? COTA had only hold out one IndyCar race. That was back in 2019. It hasn't raced since then. If IndyCar wants to return to the state of Texas, returning to COTA could be a huge possibility. And also with NASCAR, if there's going to be no All-Star race held at Texas, which again is a really good thing, where will the All-Star race be held? Could it be held back in Charlotte, which I think it could be a possibility? Could maybe have it be held at Bristol on a short track? The possibilities are endless. Regardless of what happens to Texas Motor Speedway, if this is true, if this report is true, it is going to dramatically change not only the NASCAR, but the IndyCar schedule, since a lot of things are tied to the future with Texas Motor Speedway. I do have a feeling though, because remember with Speedway Motorsports, it owns Atlanta. Also, it owns Atlanta and Texas. And I mentioned before, I don't want it to become another Atlanta, but I have a feeling that that's the direction it might go. If Texas is going to be reconfigured into anything, more than likely, it could be a new Atlanta, which I think I can speak for a lot of people. We do not want to see another Atlanta, but that's all speculative. At the moment, what we know, supposedly, Texas, apparently at the end of next year, is going to get reconfigured, blown up, to have a new racetrack, whether it's going to stay as a mile and a half, go back to the old Texas and the banking that they had, maybe go to a short track. I don't know, but things are changing in Lone Star State, and it is very interesting. And quite frankly, I'm so happy because I really want this racetrack to just die.